Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, I hope that you're having a very good Monday into Tuesday. It's 11:40 p.m. Central Time, 12:40 on the East Coast. But what matters most is that the Braves won a game in somewhat surprising, but very, very good fashion compared to their recent weeks' level of play. And it's just nice to be able to talk this late into the night about a Braves victory. And as always, joining me, my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert. Stephen, this was a nice change for the Braves, and especially for us when it comes to talking about the Braves on a night where it just seemed like nothing was going their way. They finally were able to put something together in that 10th inning and get the job done in a game that felt like a playoff atmosphere type game.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, Chris Sale versus Blake Snell is certainly a playoff caliber matchup. It still might be, depending on how the rest of the year goes. The Giants have been playing pretty well, but yeah, that was a wild game. Chris Sale was obviously unbelievable. The Braves needed it as much as they've needed anything all year. Obviously we're going to get to all the details of the game, but yeah, what a fun game. And I'm a little stunned that they won. Honestly, these are just games they've kind of lost all year. So I was just all night just waiting for like the gut punch, like the heartbreaking loss. And it never came. I mean, they were able to squeak out a 1-0 win. Rossiel Iglesias was amazing. So yeah, it was a big win. They needed it after, I mean, just a soul crushing loss yesterday in Colorado to come here against a good team that's been the Giants are one of the hottest teams in baseball. They've won like 12 of 16 games or something like that. So to go to their park against their best pitcher and win the first game, that's big. That was a huge win tonight.
Absolutely. And you talked about, Chris Sale versus Blake Snell. Easy to get the names confused with how much they sound like each other. But a pitching matchup that is just rare to see. I believe Sarah Lang said this was the fourth time that a duo of pitchers or pitchers going against each other in the same game have struck out 10 or more hitters while also allowing 3 or less runs, with both pitchers going, over 6 innings in that game, something along those lines. The point is you can come up with a bunch of obscure stats, how rare it is that two pitchers are this good, this dominant in the same game. But the thing is that this is nothing new. When the Braves fans come to watching Chris Sale, he truly has emerged as a stopper for this team. He's truly emerged, to be honest, as the ace for this team. And Stephen, I think that this is going to be one of the biggest bullet points on his resume that continues to grow as to being a valid resume for a true Cy Young contender in the National League. We needed him to pitch to his best tonight, and that's absolutely what he gave the Braves, and I'm glad they were able to get him a victory as a response.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm just glad he was actually pitching in this game. Brad and Scott talked about it on the show last night, but like Brian Snicker came out and said on Sunday that like they're done with the extra rest for their pitchers. Schwellenbach pitched yesterday. Chris Sale pitched on regular rest today. If this had been a Bryce Elder start, so that Chris Sale could have gotten more rest, it could have been another mind-numbing loss. So yeah, just the fact that he was allowed to pitch, and it seems like the Braves are just going to kind of go with their best guys, which is kind of what we've been talking about for a while now. But yeah, he was unbelievable. He actually outpitched Blake Snell. Snell, obviously Snell was very good tonight, but his pitch count got up there because he was throwing so many pitches out of the zone. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for CB Buckner back there calling maybe the worst game I've ever seen. Well, it's pretty on brand for CB, honestly. It's probably just an average game for him. But if it wasn't for that, I mean, Blake Snell could have had 6 or 7 walks in this game. I mean, he was throwing pitches everywhere. The Braves actually did a really good job of getting his pitch count up. He was out of the game in the 6th inning. Or I'm sorry, he was out of the game in the 7th inning. He went 6.1, so 6 and a third. So he was out of the game in the 7th inning, but he threw 114 pitches to go 6 and a third innings. I mean, that's pretty good from your offense in terms of making a guy work. At least, obviously, they only had a couple of hits off of him, but at least made him work. So, he wasn't going 9 innings tonight. But yeah, Chris Sale was unbelievable. 12 strikeouts. Just that's what the Braves desperately need Chris Sale to just be an ace for the rest of the year because obviously we've seen from them that they don't have a lot of margins for winning these games, especially how they're playing right now. They need every ounce of awesome that Chris Sale has, and they needed every pitch tonight that he had, and they were able to squeak one out.
And the crazy thing about it is that I would have much rather there have been a much more emphatic response from Sunday. Let's put this into perspective. Sunday's 9-8 loss to the Rockies was in many ways one of the worst losses we've seen the Braves experience in years. When you consider what was leading up to that game, the fact that it just seemed like the Braves for weeks were finding new ways to lose, and then that one truly was quote unquote rock bottom. The missed opportunity that had been there over the past several weeks with how bad the Braves have been playing, plus the Mets and the Phillies, missed opportunity after missed opportunity, and now the Braves kind of losing their top spot in the wild card position. Everything going wrong for the Braves. And then they come into Sunday night and they get the job done in order now to have a one-game cushion over the Mets for the last wild card spot in the playoffs. But Steve and I wrote about it over at batterypower.com. You wrote about it as well. It's pretty amazing that the Braves, despite all that's gone wrong for them, not only this season, but especially over the past month with, some pitching injuries that have occurred, the string of losses, the way they've been losing, again, just it seemed like everything that could possibly gone wrong has gone wrong. It's pretty amazing when you think about it that the Braves are in a playoff position, and tonight in a playoff type game, we're still able to get the job done. They were able to figure out how to get the job done to make that playoff positioning stronger.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're in the playoffs right now, and if you just forget about everything else that's happened, and especially if you forget about yesterday's loss, and just focus on that, and then they still have everything in front of them. The Phillies haven't run off and left them even for the division, to be honest. And the Braves still have, I think, 7 head-to-head games left against the Phillies. And the Phillies have been taking on water, just as much, if not more, than the Braves lately. So, yeah, I mean, everything's still in front of them. Like, if they get Reynaldo back, they're going to get Michael back on Wednesday, it looks like. If they get their guys back and they actually start clicking for like a couple of weeks or a month, I mean, literally everything is still on the table for them. As crazy as it sounds, baseball seasons are just so. I tweeted this out, but baseball seasons are just so incredibly long. Like it's even hard, even big time baseball fans. It's hard to grasp just how long they are and how much can change from week to week or month to month. And I mean, the Braves can still completely rewrite 2024. Like I said, they can accomplish everything they want to accomplish. So it's a long, long season, and there's still 40 something games left to play, and a lot can happen. And like I said, they're getting healthy, they're getting their guys back. They just got to string together some good baseball. And they really don't need that much to make the playoffs. Like I said, I mean, even with their miserable last 3 weeks, they're in the playoffs as we sit here today. So they don't have to be amazing to get into the playoffs. They just have to be solid, just hold the other teams behind them off. Now, obviously, if you want to go for the division against the Phillies, you're going to have to play really well, especially in those head-to-head games. But, just get back to playing solid baseball, scoring runs. The pitching was much, much better tonight, obviously winning a 1-0 game. But yeah, everything they want to accomplish is still in front of them. I mean, they haven't lost anything yet. I mean, there's still quite a bit of baseball left to play.
And the crazy thing to me, though, about it, Stephen, is this, is that, in 2022 and 2023, when the Braves were winning 100 games and, they were emerging as clearly being the it team in baseball, at least in during the regular season, the talk was all about how young their core was and how much it was locked up for. But in this 2024 season, where we've had so many injuries and we've been rocked by, just so many unexpected negative things that have occurred, what really has stood out as being the thing that kept us afloat and has kept us in the playoff picture has really been our veterans. Think about it. Chris Sale, 35 years old. Raisel Iglesias has been one of the best relievers in baseball again, 34 years old. Marcell Ozuna at 33, battling for the Triple Crown. Probably, right now I would say second in the MVP race. You've talked about how underrated and underappreciated Travis d'Arnaud at 35 this year has been as well. It's really been the veterans that have stood out and the biggest moments that we needed them to. Chris Sale tonight being a stopper, Travis d'Arnaud getting the game-winning RBI, Raisel Iglesias getting the big, 2 innings of work. The thing that stands out to me is that we've got these veterans on this roster that have plenty of experience in being able to deliver in key moments, and that's something that if this Braves team can get to the playoffs, those veterans can continue to deliver, and we're going to need for them to continue to deliver to really show out. But the veterans for the Braves this year really continue to show just how valuable and productive they are at their age.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I would add, Max Fried to that list. Obviously he's had the injury and coming back from that, but and before that injury, he was, going game for game with Chris Sale, locking people down. So, but no, you're right. I mean, it's been the older guys. You know, like you said, Travis d'Arnaud has been unbelievable. Even, he's not an older guy, but he is a veteran at this point because he's been around so long. But even a guy like Austin Riley, who's been on this team for years now and is one of the more veteran players on the team, even at not at technically a veteran age. He's had a really good bounce back after a rough start. So, but yeah, Marcell Ozuna, Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez, Raisel Iglesias, d'Arnaud. You're absolutely right. I mean, those guys have carried this team at times when a lot of the other team wasn't working or was hurt or both. And if they can get in, and I wrote this today for Battery Power, but last year at this point, the Arizona Diamondbacks were 2 games under 500, and were like 3 or 4 games out of a wild card spot, like on this exact date last year, and they were not thinking about a World Series run, and they barely got in. They didn't even play that great in September. They actually had a losing record their last 30 something games, but they got in, they got hot, and they made a World Series. And the Braves can do that. Like, they have enough talent, even with the injuries, they have enough talent. Chris Sale, Max Fried, if they're both healthy in October, can carry you. And the Braves have a good bullpen. Like, even though it didn't go well in Colorado, obviously for the season, the Braves have one of the best bullpens in baseball. So, just those alone can carry you in October. So, absolutely. I mean, if they get in, these veterans, the kind of seasons they've had, that can be a difference maker when you get to postseason baseball.
Another veteran who is clearly started to make his impact over the past several games is Jorge Solair. Now, nearly 2 weeks into his second stint with the Braves and 41 plate appearances, now 9 walks compared to 13 strikeouts, 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, and OPS entering tonight over 1,000. Steven at the plate, he's definitely delivered. Now, I do think it should be kept in context. Solair absolutely takes it to another stratosphere in Colorado. So that's definitely should be kept in context. And yes, he definitely has had his struggles. He's clearly struggled in the outfield so far, in his time, back with the Braves. But what they had hoped to get from him to lead off the top spot, those productive at bats, those home runs that put him in a position to win, like he did in Colorado, even tonight, 2 walks. He did his job getting on when none of the Braves are really putting together productive at bats. I would say overall, yes, the outfield play is definitely some concern, but I would say that his performance at the plate overshadows that, and I think that he's clearly been a welcome addition to the top of the Braves lineup for the simple reason that he could put multiple productive at bats together in a game.
Yeah, I mean, he gets on base. I mean, that's like, we talked about it a lot with Ronnie. Like, that's Ronnie's, for everything else that Ronnie does, the speed, the power, all that stuff. Like, Ronnie gets on base at like a 400 clip and has for most of his career. And that's what the Braves lost, or the biggest thing the Braves lost when he went down. And Jorge can do that. Like, Jorge takes so many walks and he can still hit that he can easily run a 400 on base percentage. And I think he's actually over that since he joined the Braves. I think he's like a 410 since he joined, and he had 2 more walks tonight. So, yeah, it's huge. And like you said, he's got power. He's not a good outfielder. I mean, he's a DH. Everybody knows that. He's not good out there. I'm fascinated to see what the Braves are going to do next year with him and Ozuna. They're going to have to figure something out because I don't know if you can do a full season like this. But the Braves needed offense, and he was the best hitter on the market by far. I mean, in terms of guys that moved, he's better than just about everybody else that moved in terms of being able to hit. So, and the Braves they desperately needed offense, and they were willing to sacrifice some defense. They have absolutely sacrificed some defense. Their outfield defense has not been good, been actually pretty abysmal. Michael Harris comes back in a couple of days, and that will take care of a lot of that because they will have an actual center fielder again, which will move the other guys over to left, and that'll make them a little better. So hopefully that'll clean up itself a little bit when Michael comes back. But they needed his offense, and he's delivered so far. I mean, he's got like I think I looked that up earlier. I think since he came over, he's got like a 180 WRC plus or a 190 WRC plus or something like that. And that's what the Braves were looking for. They knew it was going to be rough in the outfield. It has been rough in the outfield, but they needed more offense and they needed a guy to get on base. And he's done exactly that.
And speaking of, someone that, we're talking about players who did their job tonight. I also want to give a bit of a compliment to Brian Snicker. I know that some of us have, questioned his management of the bullpen and the pitching staff, in recent days and weeks. But tonight, I think he made some good decisions. I kind of questioned, the Whit Merrifield sending him, on the stolen base effort that didn't work out, but after the Braves, struck out, 3 straight times with runners in scoring position, that didn't, keep Brian Snicker from staying aggressive. He kept Chris Snell in for 7 innings, even though his pitch count went up. He went right back to Joe Jimenez after Jimenez had one of his worst outings of the year on Sunday, and he kept Raisel Iglesias in the game for 2 innings because he knew we needed this win. Plus, he also was aggressive when it came to the office, substituting Luke Williams in for Marcell Ozuna to get some extra speed on the base paths, and then putting Eli White at third and putting Travis d'Arnaud up to deliver the RBI hit. Brian Snicker managed to win this game. He made several good decisions when it came to personnel to put this team into win the game, and he was rewarded with the win. I know that there's been plenty of, circumstances where he's been rightfully questioned. I know I've questioned him more often than not here in recent weeks, but I do think tonight he did his job, and he put the Braves in the position to win, and they got the job done.
Yeah, he managed this like a playoff game. He was not going to take Chris Sale out until he absolutely had to. He was going to let his best relievers pitch the eighth and the ninth and the 10th. He left Iglesias in for 2 innings, which he's done a couple of times. When you get to the 10th inning and you've got a 1-run lead, if you score in the top half and you get to the bottom half, what you need are strikeouts, obviously, because the other team starts with a runner on second, just like you did. And so leaving Iglesias in, he was able to get 2 strikeouts in the 10th, which obviously helps, keep that runner at second base without scoring. Yeah, I mean, he was very aggressive with the bench. He used every single one of his bench guys tonight. And, by the 10th inning, they were out of bench guys. And he was just going for it. And I tweeted this out. I don't hate that because the Braves desperately needed this win. He was not holding any cards, for tomorrow. They just needed to win this game. And he treated it like a playoff game. And I get you can't do that every time. Like you can't do that all season. You can't pitch Raisel Iglesias 2 innings every time you need a win. But there are moments in the season where there's some are bigger than others. And after that loss yesterday, which I mean, as bad a loss as I've ever seen, like a competitive Braves team have. I mean, to give up 8 runs or 7 runs and 8 hits in 1 inning to lose a game late like that it was just brutal. And the Braves needed a win. They desperately needed a win. They needed to turn the page. And he treated it like a playoff game. And I tweeted it. I actually agree with that. I would have done the same thing just to try to get the vibes going, get a winning streak going. So yeah, I agree. I think I don't necessarily agree with all of his decisions. We talk about it a lot on here, but I had no problem with him going hyper aggressive in this game and trying to get this W.
But of course, as good as tonight feels, after the Braves, getting a bounce back victory in a playoff type atmosphere, just a needed way to start the week. Again, it just wouldn't be this season without something of relevant significance kind of taken away from the positive vibes. And that once again happened earlier on Monday. It was announced that AJ Minter, who certainly has struggled, in recent days and weeks, AJ Minter was placed on the 15-day IL. Dylan Lee was called back up from AAA. But this is not just some regular run-of-the-mill injury for AJ Minter. For the second time this season, he was placed on the IL due to a hip injury, and there seems to be, legitimate concern that AJ Minter could be done for the season. That's not been made official yet, but if you get the, kind of the mood and, the tone from, the beat writers and the comments that have been made, from multiple sources throughout the day, it seems like that there is a realistic possibility that Minter, could be done for the season. And it's not only devastating, obviously, for the role that he plays in the Braves bullpen, but for someone who's just been so consistent and such a good part of what the Braves are throughout his career, it just, to be honest, sucks to see this potentially be a season-ending development for a player who is entering free agency. And for a reliever who you don't get that many chances at a big payday, it just is really, really bad timing for AJ Minter with this injury.
I mean, it was clear something was going on with him because I talked about this the other night. I actually tweeted something out. I can't remember what day it was, but like his velocity has actually been noticeably down. Like he's down, his fastball's down like almost over a full mile an hour for like what his career numbers are, what his fastball was last year. And he just wasn't as effective. And obviously, when you lose, a chunk of your fastball velocity, that's going to happen. But it was clear something was going on with him. And yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, like you said, he's a free agent at the end of the year. Relievers don't get that many chances for big paydays. The one thing is it's a hip and not like an elbow or shoulder. Bowman, MLB.com, the Braves beat writer for MLB.com, Mark Bowman tweeted out earlier today that, AJ should be commended because he could have shut it down a long time ago and just had surgery and said, hey, I'm going to protect my payday. And he didn't do that. He's tried to, rest it and pitch through it. And I don't think they're going to let him do it again. Just the tone of all the beat writers today talking about AJ, it really felt like they were, it really felt like a bit of a eulogy where they were kind of giving the, AJ's been great and we've loved having him here kind of speeches, and we'll see. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're reading too much into that, but the tone of the beat writers today certainly didn't sound like the news was going to be positive. I think we're going to find out tomorrow. I think they said he's going to do an MRI, and then we'll find out tomorrow exactly what's going on. But he went on the 15-day IL. Obviously, that's how they got Dylan Lee back up, and so he's going to be out for at least a little while. And we'll see if it's for the rest of the year. And it's possible we've seen the last of AJ Minter in a Braves uniform.
And let's talk about the ripple effect that comes, down to the bullpen. This Braves bullpen entering, I believe play today was, or despite at least, over the past few days, entering this weekend at the very least, they obviously had their struggles in Colorado, but they were able to get the job done on Monday night. This Braves bullpen remains one of the best in baseball, but they've had struggles in recent days. But with AJ Minter now being out, that takes away a key left-handed option, and also takes away a bit of the diversity that you have in the back end of the Braves bullpen. Now you're down to Aaron Bummer and Dylan Lee, who I think are still a pretty strong 1-2 combination, but I think the Braves arguably have the deepest, right-handed, into the bullpen that you can have in baseball. But removing AJ Minter from that bullpen, that takes away a reliable late inning left-handed reliever, and so the Braves are probably going to have to adjust some of the methods in which it comes to using their bullpen moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's been one of your high leverage guys. So Dylan Lee and Aaron Bummer are going to have to step up. Aaron Bummer has actually been much better than his kind of surface numbers. Like Aaron Bummer, like the league has like a 430 BABIP batting average on balls in play against Aaron Bummer this year, which is just wild. It seems like every time he comes into the game, the first thing that happens is he gives up an infield hit of some sort. So I'm actually much higher on Aaron Bummer than a lot of people are. I think he's got a FIP in the ones this year, or it's 202. Sorry. So it's almost in the ones this year. So like he strikes a ton of people out. He doesn't walk anybody. He's had some horrible batted ball luck this year. So I think he can be a weapon, but they're going to need somebody. And Dylan Lee's had a really good year. So they have options. But yeah, those guys are going to have to step up. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the bullpen. Luke Jackson has not been good since he came over. There was actually some thought that he might get DFA'd today to get Dylan Lee back up. Obviously, we didn't know about the AJ injury, so it'll be interesting to see if Luke Jackson stays. They've got Daysbel Hernandez and AAA, who's pitched really well for the Braves this year. It's tough to say you'd rather have Luke Jackson than Daysbel right now. I think I'd rather have Daysbel, but they do like to protect their depth, so we'll see what they do. But yeah, it's a bummer for AJ. It really is. And like you said, somebody's gonna have to step up. From the left side, it's almost certainly going to be Aaron Bummer and Dylan Lee, and we'll see how they do.
A couple of other notable but expected injury, updates for the day on Monday. It was, basically confirmed that outfielder Michael Harris II will be activated on Wednesday. So one more day until we get Michael Harris back from the 60-day IL. He had been on there, for a little over 2 months with a hamstring injury. Reynaldo Lopez will be making a rehab start on Tuesday. I believe that he's eligible to come back on the 18th from the injury list, so he potentially could start over the weekend for the Braves. But, we talk about ripple effects. And so if Michael Harris II is coming back on Wednesday, you now get into another interesting conversation, Stephen, when it comes to, okay, which of your three outfielders? You're going to keep Solair and Kelenic on the roster to go with Harris. But now it comes down to Eli White, Ramon Laureano, and also Adam Duvall. Which of those players potentially could be on the move off the roster or, out of Atlanta to make room for Michael Harris II? I understand that Ramon Laureano has had his moments where he seems to be the clear guy that you would want to move on from. Eli White seems to be much more of a bench option that can be a defensive replacement for Solaire late in games. Adam Duvall, I think, offers the highest potential at the plate of these guys. But Ramon Laureano actually has been the most productive hitter at the plate out of these players. When you look at all three of those options, White, Laureano, and Duvall as being the odd man out once Harris returns, I think you can make a case for all three of them to be the odd man out, but you could easily make a case for all three of them to stay. Going to be an interesting decision to see who goes to make room for Harris II.
It actually is pretty fascinating. Even though it's not the most high impact roster decision in terms of who's going to be the fifth or sixth outfitter, however you want to count it. But because there really is an argument for all of them to be the guy that's cut loose. Like if you're just making the argument that Eli White should be the one, he has options. So if you send him to Gwinnett, then you get to keep all of them, right? And if you protect yourself against injury, but the flip side of the coin with Eli White is that of the three, Eli White is easily the best defender and he's easily the best base runner. So I could actually make the argument that he has more value on the Braves bench than either Laureano or Duvall because he can come in late and help be a defensive replacement for Solaire. And obviously, when you have a DH playing right field, having really good backup, a really good backup defensive outfielder is important. So that's the argument for him. For Laureano, he's hit the best out of all the outfielders. It's a very low bar to clear, but Laureano's got like a 750 OPS since he's joined the team, which is miles and miles better than anybody else has done, not named Jorge Soler at least. But he's been brutal in the outfield. Now, obviously, he's been brutal in center field, and when Michael comes back, he's not going to play center field. So maybe you can justify putting him in a corner, but he's been brutal in the outfield. I mean, there's no arguing that point. And then Adam Duvall. Adam Duvall probably is the best player out of all of them if you just use career numbers. But Adam Duvall is easily having the worst season out of any of these guys by a mile. I mean, Adam Duvall is like his at bats are just brutal. Even against lefties lately, his at bats have just been brutal. They're just a lot of non-competitive bats. I think he's got like 17 or 18 strikeouts in his last like 27 at bats or something like that. I think he's like one for his last 28 or 29. It's just brutal. I mean, he's just been awful and he doesn't offer a lot defensively. He doesn't offer a lot on the bases. So if you're looking for an argument for getting rid of him, that's that argument. So each guy really does have an argument for and against, and I'll be interested to see what they do. My guess is they're just going to option Eli White and keep all of them. But if it was up to me, I would keep White on the roster mainly for, helping out Jorge Soler late in games as a defensive replacement, but we'll see what they do. It is going to be interesting.
So let's reset the scene here entering Tuesday with the Braves getting this victory. The Mets had the day off. on Monday, as well as the Phillies. So the Braves right now in the East are 7 games but behind the Phillies. That we'll talk more about that after this we complete this week and go into the start of next week to face the Phillies. But a more immediate significance, the Braves do have now a full 1-game lead on the final spot in the wild card picture. Arizona and San Diego 4 games ahead of the Braves. They've been playing crazy baseball. But the big thing for the Braves is that they're 1 game ahead of the Mets and also 2.5 games, above St. Louis and San Francisco. The Braves can kind of take care of business against San Francisco if they can, especially offensively, get to playing well. But of significance directly for the Mets is that despite their struggles, they play the Athletics as well as the Marlins this week. So there's a good chance the Mets are going to have a good week. The Braves need to have a good week. I basically surmised it as they at least need to have a winning record playing 7 times this week. They really need to have 5 or more wins. And the big key, Stephen, is that Charlie Morton versus Kyle Harrison, that may be honestly where you feel the Braves may have the best chances in terms of pitching matchups left, because you've got Grant Holmes versus Robbie Ray on Wednesday and then Max Fried versus Logan Webb on Thursday. The Braves did well for their week and for this series to get the opening win against the best pitcher they'll be facing in this series, but the offense has to get going, especially facing left-handers over the next 2 games. They need that to happen, and Charlie Morton also needs to have a short memory and have a bounce-back performance on the mound. The Braves really, really need to get this game on Tuesday, and it would really help if they can get some early run support for Charlie Morton by the offense getting going like they did in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you're playing in San Francisco's a good team. You're playing 4 games. I mean, you would love to win 3 or 4. If you're being honest, like a split is probably a pretty good outcome. But yeah, I mean, the Braves just don't have a lot of margin for error. Like you said, the Mets are playing Oakland and Miami this week. Now, I will say Oakland has been substantially better in the second half. Oakland actually is I think they're 13-8 or 14-8 in the second half. Their offense has just gone bananas in the second half, which is wild. So it's not as much of a pushover as maybe it was, a few months ago. But yeah, I mean, obviously you would expect the Mets to take care of business somewhat against those 2 teams at home this week. So yeah, I mean, the Braves need to keep going. I mean, you definitely, at the very least, you want to split the series. You would love to win 3 or 4 in San Francisco and then go win the series against LA, the Angels, to finish up the homestand or the road trip. That would be best case scenario. But we'll see. I mean, I've honestly just I've kind of become Brian Snitker, where I'm thinking about the next game. Every time I try to get ahead of myself and think this team has figured it out, or they got a good stretch of schedule coming up where they could really make some hay, every time I go there mentally, it just all goes to shit. So I've become Brian Snitker. Would just win tomorrow. Just come out tomorrow, win the game tomorrow. Score some runs. Hopefully is it Charlie Morton tomorrow? Is that what you said? Charlie's pitch.
Charlie Morton versus Kyle Harrison.
Yeah. So we need Charlie to have a good game. He's not pitched well on the road. So, the offense coming out and scoring some runs against Kyle Harrison would be very welcome. But yeah, just go win tomorrow. Just win tomorrow's game and then do it again the next day and try to build on something and maybe start playing some decent baseball.
Absolutely. This team is fully capable of it, and hopefully, this win tonight, again, especially considering all that they've been through in terms of a negative sense leading up to the game, for 9 innings of the game, but in that 10th inning, when they needed to, when this team needed to deliver and bounce back, they look like, a team that, had done that so many times in recent years. It was good to see, but hopefully we can start this as the point of building some momentum. But for Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at _outliers on X/Twitter. My name is Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC on X/Twitter. For all of us here at Hammer Territory, can't thank you enough for the support. Hammer Territory is part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can even listen to us, in audio form on YouTube as well. But until next time, hit that subscribe button wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. That's where we'll be for free nearly every day when it comes to new content. Until next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.